right. RBT Training Session 7, Behavior Management, Data Collection, and Graphing. Okay, Tina Patterson, BCBA. This training program is based on the Registered Behavior Technician Task List and is designed to meet the 40-hour training requirement for the RBT credential. The program is offered independent of the BACB. They are not connected. Well,
What's the BACB?
it's the Behavior Analysis Certification Board. They're the ones that are going to give you your credential. Okay, so I'm supposed to review session 6, which is what you guys will do, you 3 will do. You can do session 6 now that you've done 5. So after you do the odd numbers with me, then you can do the even numbers that I sent you, and then I'll send you guys the... Unfortunately, I have to send you the whole entire zip file. So you're going to get all of your assignments. Please don't go ahead because it's not, you're going to learn more. It's supposed to be a review, so you're supposed to learn it with me and then review it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it will, when we go over session 6, we will add the ABC data and the function analysis data to the graph. So we will be learning how to extend that graph. Actually, just for fun, because I won't be able to do this when I review with you, let's watch these 2 things so you can kind of see what you guys will be doing.
It's an
However, we have to watch it on my
Is it all of them?
laptop.
Yeah, because they were looking for them
Yeah.
the longest time.
Oops.
What were you looking for?
Animals for Ariana.
I scooped up Ariana's animals because
You have some explaining to do to Dina. She was very concerned about the missing
I
animals.
bet she was.
She was very
I bet it was really funny. Well, I'm concerned about the missing iPad, so when we discuss that.
All right. Good idea. Team meeting. Okay, so we have to watch it on the teeny tiny screen. Sorry. Even though the sound is coming out of the TV.
Frequency recording, or tally recording, is simply tallying how many times something happened. So we would use frequency recording if we wanted to know how many times a student did something like raise their hand, talk out, go to the bathroom, etc. How many times it happened is a frequency that we're looking for. We want to make sure when we're using frequency recording that we are looking at behaviors that are the same length approximately. If the behavior sometimes happens for only a second and other times can happen for minutes at a time, then it doesn't make sense to count them. If one time a behavior happened and it lasted for an hour and we said there was 1, on another day it happened for a minute and there were 2, saying that it happened more on one day because there were 2 doesn't really make sense. So they need to be of equal duration. The big advantage we have when we use frequency recording is that it's very direct. It's us watching and recording exactly what happens. Also, if you know what time it was when you started and what time it was when you ended, you can convert it to a rate. If it happened 2 times during a minute that you watched, you could say it happened 2 times per minute. So the big disadvantage is you've got to watch the student all the time. It takes direct attention from you to do it if you're going to use frequency. Material-wise, it's pretty simple. You need a pencil and paper to tally, or you need paper clips that you put in one pocket and pull them out every time one happens and put that in the other pocket. Count them up later. Or it could be a golf counter, but it's very simple. The label you're going to have for your data when you're done is either number of times or number of times per minute.
Class, the other day we were doing some reading on Ellis Island, so we're just going to do sort of a brief question answer on this actual piece of paper regarding Ellis, okay? So here we go. Please raise your hands if you know the answers. Ellis Island was the immigration station in, you can tell me
I know that
where
one.
might
I know
be.
that one.
Austin?
New York.
That is correct. Over 12 million immigrants from all over the world entered the country through Ellis Island. The island that is now Ellis Island was purchased by a local resident named
Oh, I know.
Anybody?
Can you repeat?
Evan.
Samuel Ellis.
That's correct, in 1774. When immigration became the responsibility of the federal government in the late 1800s, officials wanted a federal immigration station to be built on Ellis Island.
Okay, so as you saw on the form, when you're done with this at the end of the observation period, all you're going to do is count up all those paper clips or count up all those tallies, and you're going to put them on the form in the blank. Now, if tomorrow you want to do this for a short period of time or maybe for a longer period of time, all you have to do is divide the number you got by the total number of minutes you observed, and that gives you rate per minute. Now it doesn't matter how long you do it any other day, it's standardized, so you're always going to have rate per minute.
Did you say quasi?
Huh?
I heard something quasi.
No, I said Wassa.
Oh. What's up? Quasi was a Starbucks term. What?
Wassa, wow.
Doesn't it make sense?
This session deals with functional analysis of behavior.
Okay, so a functional analysis of behavior is one of the ways I do assessment. So Amina knows, and you know, you guys, we covered that, right? Okay, so we did, I'm looking at the conditions, what the function of the behavior is, whether it's because of a tangible object, whether it's for attention, whether it's escaping the work, or if it is just sensory. So what they're going to do, the functional analysis is manipulating the environment.
This is part of functional.
Remember this, so this is just review,
Two terms in a functional
but I think it's a good
analysis of
review,
behavior
especially for you guys that
are used interchangeably.
you'll go over this again.
They're not the same thing. It's important to know that. A functional analysis of behavior includes an experimental manipulation, whereas a functional assessment includes usually interviews, direct observation in natural environments, and a general ABC analysis. In the experimental manipulation, we go a step further.
What is it about
Basically, we're saying if it's not working, can I go back on the value? No, we need to do a functional analysis. The functional analysis of behavior is a specific kind of functional assessment and is used to determine the function of the behavior, that is, to discover which factors maintain the behavior in question. Strategies include the manipulation of contingencies or experimentation and direct observation. The basic behavioral functions can be that the behavior produces attention or access to toys and desired activities. Basically, the behavior produces a positive reinforcer. Or the behavior allows the person to avoid or escape from demands. Basically, the behavior produces negative reinforcement. Or the behavior occurs because of sensory consequences, so it is exposed to automatic reinforcement. In all of these three cases, we see usually quite high frequency behaviors because they've all been reinforced through various ways. So when we use a systematic experimental manipulation of contingencies to find out which of these functions the behavior serves, we might design several different situations or contingencies and carefully observe how the behavior changes. And then we repeat the experiment a number of times so that we can be sure it wasn't just an accidental observation. This procedure, while it might seem as if it takes a bit of time up front, it avoids time being wasted on a try and hope intervention. So the direct observation involves directly observing the behavior and then analyzing the contingencies that have led to that behavior, the antecedent and the consequences. Let's just say take thumb sucking as a problem behavior. It is a problem because of potential damage to the gum and teeth, or also because of potential damage to tissues on the thumb and the finger. It also can cause social stigma
about just
in older
nasty
children and
jokes?
adults who suck their thumb. So, if you saw somebody sucking their thumb during a committee meeting, you would certainly have some thoughts about that, and it would cause social stigma for that person. So, thumb sucking, while it might not be considered a big problem in babies, it does eventually cause a problem. It might also lead to the avoidance of tasks or social situations. So in order to run some functional tests, we need to clearly define the target behavior and the dimensions to be mentioned, the dimensions on which it is to be measured. For instance, frequency or duration, or whatever other dimensions. For a review of the dimensions of behavior, you need to go back to the behavior measurement lectures. Then we design the experimental manipulations or tests that manipulate different environmental events to see how the behavior changes under those circumstances. And then we observe directly and systematically the behavior and reassess and repeat the tests. So let's have a functional analysis of thumb sucking in 4 conditions. The first condition will be alone. The alone condition, there's no stimulation provided, there's no social interaction provided. This condition will check whether the behavior is reinforced through automatic reinforcement. The second situation will be a demand condition. There will be a suitable demand will be placed on the person, not too much, but just a suitable demand, and we'll see if the behavior is used to avoid the demand to avoid the problem, the demand. In which case, if that behavior is used has a function of avoiding the demand, basically, we can assume that there's negative reinforcement in play. The next situation will be social attention. The child will be reprimanded when he's sucking his thumb, and basically, if that increases the thumb sucking behavior, we can assume that the positive reinforcement is in place. And then we will have an enriched situation where there's lots of stimulation and where other behaviors will be reinforced, the non-thumb sucking behaviors, which gives us an indication that if this behavior does not occur in this situation, then it gives us an inroad into designing the intervention. We will also graph the behavior. This is a hypothetical graph. So whenever you're going to see these video clips in just a moment, you need to think about what behavioral dimension will you measure and how will you measure it, and then take some data, because you'll be asked to draw this graph afterwards. You can replay the videos as you need to. So the functional analysis of thumb sucking, 4 conditions. The first condition.
Oh, this one again. Alright, I'm gonna fast forward because these were pretty awful.
Like, awful how?
Like, watch that for 10 seconds. Okay, got the gist of it. That's pretty much all that they did, because it's an alone condition. So they don't do anything.
Twirls here too.
This is the second alone condition.
Why are there 2 alone conditions?
Because you have to run the condition several times to make sure it wasn't a mistake. There's the third.
Wow, yeah, we don't need to watch that. I was a thumb sucker.
Thereby being negatively
Maybe
reinforced.
Jack Levinky, so he wouldn't be a thumb sucker. So when he has the demand, or she has the demand, she's not sucking her thumb because she's active. So it's really pretty much because she's bored. It's a sensory thing.
Yeah.
So if we keep her active, she's not going to suck her thumb. I'm going to skip through it because this was covered in session 5, and this is session 3, and technically this is the review of session 6.
What's she doing? Or he or whatever.
A puzzle?
Ugh.
Oops.
The third.
Really good.
So here she just gets to play with whatever. Puts her thumb in her mouth, and then they say something. So social attention. So there's no attention given to her at all until, or him, I don't know what it is. It.
Oh,
And then,
why?
because you're doing the opposite of what you would do for a treatment. Because you want to see what the function of the behavior is. So,
Finally, we have the
you'll learn that when you get to
We didn't run it as
session 3. But the functional analysis is you're doing the opposite. If they're doing something wrong, if they're doing something to escape the work, then you're going to take the work away. They win. You're going to feed into it. You're going to let them get their way.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
It's really fun. It's really fun. We just don't have the right environment for it, and they're really hard to do.
We run another enriched situation.
Like, I can't do one by myself. Like, you need another BCABA or another BCBA. Like, you have to have somebody with you so that
Right.
they can take the data while you're in there.
Oh, I want to see one of these.
Melinda and I did a couple together.
Conclusions of the functional analysis.
Could have been her aunt.
Write down the conclusions from your graph.
Could have been her aunt.
Much, but there was a bit of that. So
In-law.
it might be that
Kind of.
some of the attention given to the function might have actually reinforced that behavior. Based on the functional analysis, it is likely that the sum sucking was not a function of demand avoidance. It's quite clear that when there was demands asked of the child, he was not engaging in the problem behavior at all. In fact, the demands may even function as a reinforcer for the absence of thumb sucking. You could see he really enjoyed that, playing and having some demands placed on him. He enjoyed that. So the implications for interventions would be that behaviors that are maintained by automatic reinforcement are difficult to change because it is difficult to remove the automatic reinforcer. So the intervention should be based on reinforcement of alternative or other behaviors or competing responses. Interventions could include alternative sensory stimulation, such as the use of a teasing toy when he's on his own. Behaviors that are maintained by positive reinforcers, such as social attentions, are addressed by removing the positive reinforcer from the problem behavior. So you would maybe instruct the mother to ignore the problem behavior rather than reinforcing it. So the intervention should be based on differential reinforcement of alternative or other behavior and extinction of the problem behavior. The outcome of the functional analysis would be that we have operational description of the undesired behavior. We have the prediction of times and situations of the undesirable behaviors. We have a definition of the functions and an identification of the variables that maintain the undesirable behavior. Ultimately, the objectives of the functional analysis are not to define or eliminate. They are to understand the structure and function of the behavior and to guide the intervention, to teach effective alternatives. So the functional analysis has an educative function. One important point to remember when we do a functional assessment or a functional analysis is that topographically similar behaviors can serve different functions. So even when the behaviors look very, very similar, they may not have the same function. Also, topographically different behaviors can serve the same or similar functions. So even behaviors that look very, very different might still serve the same function. Behaviors can serve more than one function. That is also important. We've seen it in the example here that the behavior may very well serve two functions. Therefore, not all topographically similar behaviors will respond to the same intervention techniques. So the functional analysis will guide us so that we design our interventions to address the function of the behavior, not necessarily the topography. The topography can be quite irrelevant in the functional analysis. We are looking at the function of the behavior. Of course, we are addressing the topography if the topography means that there's harm comes to the person in question. So behaviors can have one or a combination of function. And ultimately, function-based intervention require a careful look at curricular requirements, basic behavior management, and availability of non-contingent reinforcement. The references, some references to this presentation, and especially interesting to see Brian Iwata talking himself in the YouTube video. So feel free to explore.
me just see what the. Oh. Where is it? Let me just see what this one is.
I want to be a part of one of these. But emotional.
Yeah.
This session deals
Oops,
with
sorry, that's the
functional
one we did.
analysis
Okay.
of behavior.
All right, let me turn.
Do you think they were trying to find somebody who sounded like Freud?
Or young.
Who knows?
Lend some credibility.
Okay.
Me.
Okay, so you have, this is all review, so I'm skipping past these. Prepare for data collection. It's going to be very similar to our last session. Okay, conduct naturalistic observations, which we did. We already talked about, but we're going to look at just what's going on in our environment. Without saying names, Amina, can you think of the environment that you went to on Monday? Is there anything that you think might be contributing to any problem behaviors? I've never been there, so I have no idea what's going on, what it looks like.
What I saw, I feel like the TV is a distraction.
Okay,
So knowing that he can watch TV
right.
is what causes his behavior problems.
Right, and I think that she said that he's used to coming home
And just watching
TV and vegging out.
Yeah.
Well, that's not okay for any child, let alone a child on the spectrum, right? Screen time is crucial.
The thing is, when he does watch TV, he's not sitting down. He's just running around copying the same behaviors he sees in the show.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know what you say about that.
Wait, what's he doing?
He's just
He's like running.
he's like
jumping.
doing he's stimming, but it's an echoic behavior, but it's with his body, not with his voice.
Whoa. What does
He's-
that mean?
Well, he's just copying
Oh, anybody?
the TV.
Is he? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he copies the behaviors of what he sees on TV.
Well, that's not good.
No.
No.
Right. So, and that's what he does every day for I don't know how long, but that seems to be like the biggest challenge. Right? So that's a huge naturalistic observation. That's a big problem. If getting your TV taken away is going to cause the problem behavior, guess what we're going to do? We're going to take the TV away. Sorry, you can work for the TV. You can work for 5 minutes of the TV at a time. Screen time is not a babysitter. It's easy, and
It's
as a
not a good
mom,
one.
I get it. But Jack threw a fit the other day because our rule is there's no TV after 7. There's just not. No TV. And he knows this, and it's always been that rule. And he wanted to watch a show, and I told him, no, I'm going to put something on that I like, and he started trying to get the remote from me, like, I don't know who you are. So I said, okay, fine, nobody watches TV. I turned it off, and I sat on the remote, and he just had a full-blown meltdown. And I said, you can stop this now. It is 7:10. There's no more TV. You can stop now, or you won't have TV tomorrow either. He sat down and said, it's fine, whatever. He got over it. He refused to eat dinner. He didn't eat dinner because he was so mad. So he went to bed. If you don't eat your dinner, you don't get a bedtime snack. You can eat your cold dinner. I'm not going to reheat it up for you because I already cooked it once.
I love you. And then you can have it for breakfast.
And then he got in trouble at school yesterday, and he does get, he's very afraid of highways, which I think is because he's my cousin reincarnated. My cousin passed away in a car accident, and I think he's Nick, and he's very afraid of highways because it goes too fast. So he does get my phone on the way home. He usually falls asleep anyway within 10 minutes, but he does get it. He doesn't get it until we're on the highway. Once I get merged on the highway and he knows, then he asks phony. So I give him the phone for the last 15 minutes of our drive because the car is such an anxiety problem for him. So I told him as his punishment yesterday for getting in trouble at school, because he doesn't get in trouble at school ever, he had no phone yesterday. And he didn't argue with me because he knew that was easy. We should have had a lot more, and then Dad came home, and then he got yelled at even more. And of course, Dad walks in and, what happened at school today? And of course, he starts crying immediately. I'm like, you didn't shed one tear for me, and the teacher told
Because
me
you're
what
the
happened.
mom.
But the Anyway, off of my tangent, naturalistic observations.
But how did he do, just like without the phone, on the highway?
He went to sleep. He closed his eyes.
Good for him.
He was fine. So, yeah, gee, the highway is no fun. When he was going to go to a field trip, he thought that his school bus didn't have seatbelts. And he didn't want to go because he didn't want to get on the bus without a seatbelt.
They have seatbelts now?
His is not a real school bus. It's a daycare bus, so they have seatbelts, so he was
Oh.
able to get on the bus. But I met them there because I was going to just take him.
Right.
Because I didn't think they had seatbelts because he didn't want to go. He's very afraid of cars. Too fast. My babies. Define target behavior. So we know it's important to define the target behavior. It is on task, not out of seat. Like we saw in that one video. We saw a video earlier where they were taking off-task data or on-task. It was off-task. They counted the person as working because they were at their seat. They clearly were not working. They were looking around, but they were still in their seat. They weren't wandering around the room, but they marked it as an on-task behavior, even though they were not. So the target behavior really needs to define of what it looks like and what it does not look like. Examples and non-examples. Then we determine the measurement, so whether it needs to be frequency or duration, so we know for somebody that's going to take 30 minutes, we need to do a duration because that's impeding on their learning. Or if it's just 10 seconds of throwing a fit but hitting 10 times, we want to do a frequency. So it depends on what the behavior is, on how we're going to measure it. And then we make our forms and our data collection. So I try as hard as I can to use the same data sheets as much as I can so it's easy, so it's not so confusing going back and forth. When there's so many cooks in the kitchen, we need to make sure we're all on the same page and it doesn't get too confusing. And then we train staff or caregivers. So Nadine's going to train parents on Wednesdays and Sundays, and you're going to train parent on Monday especially. Especially the aunt, I think. I'm hoping she'll be part of it. She worships him and lets him do whatever he wants, and I think that's a huge disservice to him. I get it. He's family and he's got all these needs and they love in him and they feel for him, they feel bad, but that's not helping him. He's 5 or almost 5. Like, I get it. But we have to be there as lovingly as much as possible. Tell them that this TV, yes, it helps you get things done, but we have to find something else that he can do. He loves to match. Can he do matching? Like, let's find other games for him instead of watching a screen and just copying a screen, because it's just not healthy. What's the difference between, it's asking me to ask you guys, what's the difference between a difficult behavior and a challenging behavior?
Semantics. Sorry.
Is there any difference? A difficult and a challenging. My child is difficult, no doubt. He is a difficult child. He will test you. He will... This morning he got a bag of mini marshmallows, and Mike asked him what he was doing, if he thought he was eating marshmallows for breakfast, and he said, "No, I just had one." Well, you just had one because you just got caught. Otherwise, you would have had all of them, my guess. So he is a difficult child because he will test the boundaries. He knows what's expected. He will test. Challenging is, I think, more of your safety concerns, and it's impeding on their learning and being able to grow. I think, is mostly the difference. So let me flip this around, and maybe this video has something to define the two. I don't know.
I like your definition.
Difficult and challenging,
Yeah,
because all children are difficult, right? They just are. People are difficult.
people are difficult.
People are difficult in every way. Oh, will you pass this all the way down before I forget? So everybody is difficult. The challenging ones are where we are called in and to help them cope and use those coping skills and learn and not have those negative behaviors.
Let's look at a scene in an early childhood environment in which the teachers, like all of us, face difficult behaviors and at times respond in ways that don't help the child learn more positive behaviors.
Joshua, you don't have to go to sleep, but remember, you have to stay on your mat. It's time to rest and relax. And playing with Wyatt is not a choice. Joshua, turn back around the other way and go lay on your bed. Look at me. Wyatt is trying to rest also. We don't want to mess with him. Wyatt is trying to rest, Joshua. He doesn't want to play. Alright, Joshua. Do we need to help you get on your bed?
Tell Miss Leslie what you want.
I'm not going to come back over there, Joshua, if you're kicking Miss Debbie. If you would like me to come back over there, you need to ask.
We'll take another look at this sequence at the end of the program to examine what might be done in future situations like this to help the child learn more positive behaviors. Meanwhile, let's begin answering the question, what is challenging behavior? Almost all children who have trouble controlling their behavior can learn new, more effective ways of taking part in school activities and playing with their friends. A child often shows dramatic improvements in his behavior when he learns how to use his words or how to control his impulses. But in order to have a chance to learn and use these new skills, a child has to be involved with adults who are committed to helping him. A recent study conducted by Yale University indicated that over 5,000 children were expelled from preschool in 1 year. This expulsion rate is more than 3 times that of children in kindergarten through the 12th grade. The study also described as many as 1 in every 10 children as having a serious behavioral problem. Helping these children can be hard work. Programs that expel young children often feel they can't help those few children using difficult behaviors while still meeting the needs of other children in the classroom. But the fact is, as a qualified teacher, you can help these children. You may not realize that you already have many of the skills needed to help children using challenging behaviors.
Teachers, oftentimes faced with challenging behaviors, their first reaction is, I'm not prepared to deal with this. I don't have the training to deal with this. When in reality, if she simply reflected on the skills that she does have, and I think that's the really key point, is that ability to really stop and do some self-reflection and take a look at what am I really good at, and maybe that I'm good at anticipating what the triggers are for that behavior. Well, that's going to really give me some good warning. I may not know exactly what to do about that, but I can learn then to become intentional about some kind of intervention at that point. So I think, really reflecting and developing an awareness of what skills you do have is the first step to realizing that you might be able to develop the confidence and competence to deal with the challenging behaviors.
Dealing with challenging behaviors is a normal part of some preschool teachers' jobs. Most children will, at times, use difficult behaviors as they try out different ways of interacting with the world around them, or as they adapt to difficult situations like a family move, parental separations, a new sibling, recent changes within the classroom, or other major events in their lives. Usually, children adapt quickly and stop using behaviors that aren't the most effective at helping them get what they want or need. But sometimes a child doesn't stop using challenging behaviors. Without help, this child's behavior will likely limit his ability to learn and grow. Determining the difference between behavior that is difficult but likely to improve and behavior that is challenging and likely to require intervention comes with experience. The description of challenging behavior used by some child development experts and cited in the book Challenging Behavior in Young Children by Barbara Kaiser and Judy Sklar-Razminsky has 3 components. Challenging behavior is defined as any behavior that interferes with children's learning, development, and successful play, is harmful to the child, other children, or adults, puts a child at high risk for later social problems or school failure.
So I think I was pretty good on my definition between difficult and challenging. So challenging is something that's going to prevent them to learn and grow. Oops. Okay, continuous data measurement procedures. Who remembers Emina is the only one that is excluded that doesn't have to answer this question, which is a continuous, give me one.
Can I look at my notes?
Sure.
Okay. You're like, yeah, whatever. Continuous.
Continuous data measurement.
Latency.
And
Frequency.
what?
Frequency.
Okay, and
Duration.
Yes. Okay, frequency, duration, and latency.
Alright, let's make an
Those
acronym
are
of
your
that.
3 continuous data measurement procedures. Those are the ones we use the most. Frequency, duration, latency. Frequency is your tallies or your paper clips. Just kidding, we don't use paper clips. You can, but I don't.
Staples, you know?
Huh?
Nothing.
I was listening.
I know.
Duration is how long the behavior occurs, and latency is how long it takes them to comply from the direction that was given. Oh, it's like it says click on the camera icon to observe a child during quiet play. I'm like, where's the icon? There it is.
Jack's not difficult, he's precocious.
He's special. He is special.
You're having a cake with a cake.
Oh, that's alright, as long as you give me cake.
You're having a cake. You're having a house cake.
Oh, okay.
And a bedroom one. Me?
House bedroom. I have never seen one of those before. What sort of cake did you have for your birthday?
Justin Bieber one.
Did you? Justin Bieber.
Yep, and I was 4.
Wow.
Now 4 now.
Do you like Justin Bieber?
Yep, because he's my boyfriend.
Is he? I see. He's your boyfriend. He sings songs, doesn't he?
I have seen the brother and Moy, and he has I
3 songs, does he?
Yep.
What songs does he sing?
And I have my Justin Bieber.
Do you?
Cool. And I already had.
Excellent. Can you sing me one of his songs?
No.
You can't?
Now I'm in the main monitor.
I
don't know any Justin Bieber songs. Sorry.
Play-Doh.
Yeah, you can have some Play-Doh, Eli. There you go. That was very nice. Have you finished playing, have you? Yeah. Please.
Your cake is taking long.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Must be a super duper cake if it takes a long time. Are you putting it in the oven?
No.
How are you going to make my cake?
I don't know. Putting sprinkles on it.
Well, that sounds good. Sounds yummy. What flavour is it?
Yummy. Blue and it's
Blue. Okay. Wow.
We were watching for.
It was quiet play, to define and measure quiet behavior. That was supposed to be like a quiet playtime. So how can we define that quiet play?
Physically quiet as opposed to like auditory. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They weren't flailing around.
Right, so if it's quiet behavior, how do we define that to measure it? If they are
Seated.
okay. Can. One boy wasn't. But
That's
everybody
true.
else was. So maybe he's the one that you're taking data on. Not throwing the sand.
Yeah.
Doing something just with your fine motor maybe. It's quiet behavior. So you're not using your whole body, just your hands. Discontinuous data measurement. Partial. Whole, and momentary. Do. Look how we did that. So, partial interval happens, let's say you have 2 minutes. It happens at all in that 2 minutes. You mark it, you're done. It overestimates. If you have a whole interval, the behavior has to occur for the entire interval period, 2 minutes period. Whatever that interval is, it has to occur for the entire time. If for the momentary time sampling, you are taking the data at the end of the 2 minute interval, whatever the interval is, if the behavior is occurring. So it does tend to underestimate. Because if it's not happening at the end of the 2 minute period, you mark 0. Well, that doesn't mean that it didn't happen 30 seconds ago. It just didn't happen. Like that girl wandering around the room, like she was working and then she got up. She was working the whole time and then she got up at 2:58. Okay.
Reached her limit.
Partial interval, whole interval.
Why at the end, may I ask? Why at the end?
Mostly for convenience. So if you shorten your interval time, you can shorten it down to 30 seconds, depending on what you want. So that way the teacher, if you have more than one child and you are trying to, manage an entire large group, I can take momentary time sampling on you guys, right? So I can just look up at, my watch has the vibrating timer, so I know to just look up and check and see, okay, yep, they're on task. Whatever. So I'm just momentary checking and then moving on and doing something else. That way it's inconspicuous. Nobody knows I'm doing it, and it's not going to take any extra time on me. I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing, and it doesn't affect anybody else. It's relatively easy. Whole interval is difficult because you have to make sure you're watching the whole time. Partial is you're in between because you can stop watching as soon as they do it. But what if they don't do it until the end?
Yeah.
Then you're still watching.
Yeah.
So your momentary time sampling is your easiest one to use if you are in a large classroom setting.
And it, I'm sorry, it under or overestimates? I forgot. Wait, no, I wrote it down.
It's under. overestimates because it might not occur at the end.
Okay.
Let's say you have 10.
It might have happened before,
Right.
and if you see this happen, you still don't.
You can't because it's not until the timer goes off.
Right. Man, I've heard that so many times.
The timer goes off. Ready? For more fun.
A third way to record data on problem behaviors is to use partial interval recording. This is a time sampling procedure that can be defined as recording whether or not a behavior occurs during any part of an interval of time. For this type of data collection, you should set a timer for the specified interval. When the timer rings, you record a yes if the behavior occurred at any time during the interval, or a no if the behavior did not occur at any time during the interval, as you see in this sample data sheet.
Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see it. So it's number of 15-minute intervals. So they have a 15-minute interval, so like throughout the day they have their intervals, and then the problem behavior, circle yes if the problem behavior occurred at any time during the interval, circle no if the behavior did not occur at any time during the interval. So for the first 15 minutes, where there's self-stim, yes. Perseverations, yes. Aggression, no. Tantrums, no. Non-compliance, yes. So then what you can do is, after you get all these done, then you're going to look and see, is there any overlap? So your non-compliance, we have, let's see if it looks like every time there's a perseveration, there's also a non-compliance. So you look on your overlap. It's kind of like a Venn diagram, and you see like, okay, what's going on here? Every time there's aggression, or every time there's a tantrum, is there aggression? No. They're tantruming, but it doesn't look like there's no self-stim behaviors during that tantrum. Sometimes there's a non-compliance, but there's no aggression, so the aggression's not in here. So we try to look and see, it looks like the self-stim is your main target behavior. It has the most. So that would be why you're doing your partial interval. You want to just see if there's any overlap of behaviors and how many times it's occurring, so that you can then, so this is like your first few steps of creating something that, how can we make this decrease? We want to decrease, because right here it's overestimating. Who knows how long it actually happened. If you did a whole interval, your scores are going to definitely change.
Here's an example of an instructor using partial interval recording to take data on problem behaviors during a behavior intervention session.
When the timer goes off, immediately press start again. There should not have been, I mean, that's a big time chunk that you didn't take. That's he should get credit for that, right? That 30 seconds or whatever that he was sitting there slowly circling. The timer goes off, you immediately reset it. There should not be any time, because what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen in real life? Mm-hmm. She's going to circle it, he's going to have a problem behavior, and she's going to forget to start the timer. Immediately. Every time, I can guarantee you, you will forget to start the timer. Why do I know that? Because I've done it. You forget. Things happen. Turn it off, turn it on. Thank you.
Or the child will disappear.
Oh, no. Oh, wait, that was the end of the first one. Okay, hold on.
A third way...
it might be the same, but I don't know. So we'll just wait.
Welcome to the practice video for our district's new Student Behavioral Observation Form. This session is designed to give you the opportunity to try filling out the form using footage of real students in a classroom setting. So grab a form and let's get started. You'll notice that I've put my own name as the observer, the name of my school. I put a fake name.
Blah, blah. Briefly describe the activity or lesson being observed. Students are asked to copy notes and answer questions found in a section of the textbook. The time interval is 10 seconds, and they're going to do it for 2 minutes. It's from 9 to 9:02.
I've included a brief description of the activity that's being observed in our video. As well
So
as
only
our
taking
time
data for 2
interval,
minutes, but for every 10
start
seconds.
time, and end time. For training purposes, our interval time for this session will be 10 seconds. These are the students in the classroom you'll be observing for our observational trial. Please choose one of the students to use as your observee for this session. Every 10 seconds, when you hear the following cue, you'll decide whether the student is on task, passively off task, or actively off task. This is what your 10-second cue looks and sounds like. Now you're ready to begin.
Okay, let's
Which one
pick
should we
somebody.
pick?
Let's pick somebody in the back, because those are always the fun ones. So, I'm going to totally profile.
Do it.
I'm going to profile this kid. He's wearing black,
Oh,
longer
well.
hair,
Mm-hmm.
and he's in the back.
Okay. Let me
Okay.
see. Yeah.
So-
that looks good. Or the one, this guy in the front, in the black shirt. With
He's in the front.
Hey, you know, I
Maybe
sit
he's in the front because...
They have to watch him more.
Okay, so you can take data on that one.
Okay.
Hold
8
on.
students in a classroom?
Hold on. Let me just get some scrap paper here. Oh, look, scrap paper. All right, you take that one.
Okay.
All right, ready?
So wait,
We're gonna.
what am I looking for? What's
I want you to set it up so we have 10-second intervals. So it's gonna be for 2 minutes.
I don't know how to do
60.
that.
Oh, that's too many.
Yeah, that's too many.
Okay, I don't even know. We are looking for them to be. The assignment was for them
Oh,
to
that's right.
copy
Mm-hmm.
and answer the questions. And so for every 10 seconds, so I'm just gonna go. So this is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 120. So it's 11. 11 data points you'll have.
Okay. I don't even know what my timer is on this thing. You say?
120 seconds.
So, and the
So it's 11 data points. So I have 11. These are my intervals. I have 11 intervals because they're each 10 seconds, right?
okay, Yes.
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 Did I do my math right?
I don't know. I just wrote
10,
10,
20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 120. 120 seconds is 2 minutes, and that's how long she's going to take the data for. Okay, so we're going to do plus if they're working. Do you want to do minus if they're not?
Slow circles.
Okay. Whatever.
I'm going to do a check.
You're going to do a check? If what? Check sounds good.
Yeah, doesn't it? Check if they're doing it.
If they're working.
Yes.
And what are you going to do if they're not?
Yes. A low unhappy face. No, I won't.
You're going to leave it. Don't leave it blank. You have to do something.
Okay.
What are we going to do?
I'm going to do plus or minus, although I like the check idea.
Do check and X. That's why I got my master's. What?
You're waiting to see if he looks away from you.
Yeah, so the objective for him, the directions are
Check and X.
to copy, right? Copy and answer questions.
So they take right.
So he should be writing.
Okay.
We're going to look at every 10 seconds if he's doing it, and then we'll do a check. If he is writing, we don't know if he's writing the correct thing.
Yeah.
He could be drawing, for all I know. But we're going to give him a check if he appears to be on task, and an X if he's not. Every 10 seconds for 2 minutes. Okay. Here's a stopwatch. Should I do timer? Yeah. This is the problem. So I'm going to turn my ringer on. I'm not really sure what. I don't really know how to use my phone. I'm not really good with technology. But so if Michael calls,
No, please let me answer.
I hope that I hope he doesn't, because his tone is not a pleasant one. Okay.
Okay, I'm watching my guy.
All right. So I'm watching him. You're watching him.
Yeah, Jeremy. I think his name's Jeremy. I know, right? He looks like a
I
Jeremy.
dated a Jeremy, and he was bad.
Mm-hmm.
Session. Every 10 seconds, when you hear the following cue, you'll decide whether the student
They're giving you
is
the cue.
on task, passively off task, or actively off task.
Whoa.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that first.
Okay. How about a slash if they're partial?
This is getting too confusing. Plus, minus, 0.
Okay.
We can do whatever we want, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so plus is yes.
But as long as you know.
Minus is
partial.
Oh, God.
And a 0 is no.
Okay.
Nadine's going to have to do this soon with our kiddo in the preschool. So we got to make sure we come up with a good
Oh,
way
well
to-
then let's come up with something better than that. I mean, I didn't know if you wanted to
It
do
doesn't
it right now.
No, it doesn't matter for now. This is good practice.
Oh, okay.
You guys are going to be doing this like in your homework stuff.
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff you guys are going to be doing.
I'm going to pick shapes.
Watching videos and taking data.
We don't do this at the house.
We'll see. It's hard to tell because the house demands are always different. Because there's not as much tasks. There's not as much demands. It's a little bit more lenient. So we want them, it depends on what the parents need and the issues at that time. So we kind of, it's a whole new ballgame when you're at home. It really is. Okay.
This is what your 10-second cue looks and sounds like.
Okay.
Now you're ready to begin.
Ready?
How can you look away at 10 seconds? Okay. I don't like this. Which one? The one in the back? Well, Jeremy sucks.
His head's down.
Yeah.
God, I'm a good profiler. I'm spot on every time. I mean,
I don't know what to even call that. Are they supposed to be writing? Well, reading and writing.
yeah.
We're supposed to be copy and then
Yeah.
I don't.
be like partial.
I don't know what
I
he's
don't
doing.
really think my guy's doing anything over there.
I think he's just sticking off.
I think I picked a good one.
Is he writing or is he just?
Oh no.
No, mine's not writing.
Oh.
No.
No, I don't.
No,
think,
but he's reading. He looks like he's working.
Yeah,
Now he's
I can
writing.
sniff it out though. So you got a plus. I don't know what second we're on here. Oh, yeah, I got behind.
Boop boop bitty boop boop boop. He didn't do anything.
Well, that is some partials there. The maybes. Well, I only got.
There's no answer.
History.
Oh. What fresh hell is that?
Well, that makes me sad.
Well, but you already know the answer. My guy had two partials. Two partial.
How did you lose track? We gotta practice taking
We
data.
do have to. I know that. I know. Listen to my voice.
I am a princess.
No, it was because
I don't.
It doesn't matter.
It really doesn't.
No, it doesn't matter.
We just know we need to practice taking data.
That's all that matters.
And I think that's just across the board. There's only, and there's a few of you guys that are really great at taking data, but that's because they've been doing it for a long time. And it just takes time. It just takes practice. It's all, you'll get better. You'll get better. I know. As long as it's not taking data because you don't want to, I'm okay with you learning. I'm okay. Okay. Permanent product. Permanent product. Here's our drawing for those of you who watched the last video. We found it. Here's a permanent product. It is something that was left behind in the environment and you can count it. It's a work sample, the permanent product. So think of a permanent product from somebody else that you've worked with. I'll come back.
Yeah.
Think of one. Think of a permanent product.
I mean this in honesty. Do marks count? I'm not being a smart ass. Probably not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something left in the environment.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
You can count it. Technically, yes.
Okay.
Okay? Let's see. Nadine. I'm trying to think. How long were you at the daycare when the power went out?
Just a half hour.
Oh my.
She's had the worst luck.
But he was there yesterday.
Yeah. I heard it was a rough day.
Yeah. He did not want anything to do with me.
You don't want anything.
Except during recess, he was fine playing with me, but
Yeah.
when it came to actual things, he was just like,
He had a rough lunch, from what I heard. Did he? Probably not. Did you have him scribble or color at all? Or are you guys just outside?
No, they were outside most of the time I was there.
It's like scribbling, coloring.
But when I was at the house on Wednesday, I have a half-colored picture of a car.
There you go. What about our other little guy?
I was just thinking, like, what about the amount of puzzles he completed or something?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. It was left behind. Gosh,
Couldn't
he's
think of
a,
anything besides pictures.
he's, your kids are difficult.
Because anytime we draw, it's the dry erase thing, so it's not really.
Somebody else left behind. I can't think of the one in Avon. How about? She clear tables with you at all yet? She's a tough
No,
one.
she hasn't done anything bad with me yet. Considering my self-love.
Yes.
Honeymoon phase.
It is. It surely. Oh, wait. What's this eye for? Oh. Instead of a camera, it's an eye. I don't know why. Okay, so it says that permanent products a way to build rapport with the teachers. Why do you think, if you were in a classroom setting, so Nadine, it's hard to get, those teachers are hard to read. They really are, especially the main lead teacher. She's finally starting to open up to me a little bit, but I think she's understanding that we're there for help, not to scrutinize her, even though we secretly are.
Which one is she? I don't know.
Redhead.
Okay.
What is this, a daycare? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But if we make a permanent product with him, how can that build rapport with his teachers? What do you think how is that going to help our relationship with them? If we have him make something, do something. Or an OT. If we have our kids do something, how is that going to build our rapport, our relationship with our OTs?
You as a behavioral technician.
Yeah.
Okay.
How is that going to help you guys? You and Kara, or you and Erica, or you and Rachel. How is that going to help your relationship grow? As in, just saying with OTs, because you make more things, more permanent products in the OT area because of the fine motor.
How will that
Grow your
the
relationship.
permanent product or the process of making it? Or yes?
How is the permanent product going to help your relationship with that OT?
I feel like it helps build trust.
How? You're right.
Because you're both trying to help the child.
Right, and you're working on the same goals, right? So, I got this book for $25 last weekend. It was like the highlight of my weekend. And I got it because the first two pages in it were probably the ones on the floor.
Are those the drawing ones?
Yeah.
I have a big chunk with me for some reason.
That doesn't start.
No, maybe.
You probably have the ones I need.
I do. I think they're in my car.
Anyway, so I got these books. Oh, I have another copy. I made extra copies because Jack thought it was for him.
Only child.
Oh, seriously. So I made extra copies so I could give him his. But, so the first two pages were, and I went up to Katie and I showed her so that she could see how cool. But so a lot of our kids' OT goals are drawing these simple lines. Drawing it down across circles or pluses, and then the diagonals, the squares. These are literally, not even joking, the goals that the OTs had given us to work on in ABA with them. When I saw this, it could have been $4 to $5 and I would have bought the book, but it was $25, and I was so excited. But so I knew I was going to laminate it because all of our kids need this. And it came with other pictures so that there's, a rainbow, and it progressively gets harder. And then there's ladybugs.
There's a bumblebee in there.
There's a bumblebee. for one of our kids that was a butterfly in a previous life and loves everything and anything that flies. Dragons, ducks, anything. So there's ducks in here. So when I showed Katie and I asked her if this is what they are thinking about, and she's like, that's great. That's wonderful, because they're getting a visual, they're going step by step. So it's building that rapport that they know that we're trusting them. We know, we're trusting that they know what they're talking about. You guys know what their OT goals are. I don't know. I wasn't trained in OT. You guys are, right? So you guys are going to build that rapport, that relationship, saying, we're on the same team. We might be doing different ways, but we all are going to work on this goal together, because this, as professionals, you know that this is what they need to get to the next step. And we know behaviorally that they can't do this until we do our part. So we're going to work on this together. And then they get, like, we're not here to overstep. We're not over here to say, we're doing it our way. We're taking all of their goals and we're working on it as a team. And that's how you're going to build the rapport. And when you're doing that in a classroom, especially because the teachers are very, it's their world. It is their kingdom. And God forbid anybody come and step in and tell them what to do, because it's their classroom. They know what they're doing. Who is this person that's just going to step in and tell me what to do? Well, that's not what we're there for. We're there to help. We're there to see what you're expecting of the child, and we're going to give you a permanent product saying, see, we're working on what you're expecting. We're just going to kind of do it a different way so that they're successful, because we can't get to your point Z until we can get to C, because it's just too much for our kids. So we're going to take it baby steps. And if they see we're taking those baby steps, and they'll start to loosen up and trust us that we're here for them and not just to critique them and do what we want, because that's not why we're there. On that note, let's see what this guy says.
Welcome to the short presentation on ongoing child assessment, collecting and using work samples. The purpose of this presentation is to help teachers think about how to plan for, collect, and use children's work samples in their classrooms and programs. Work samples can be used to monitor children's progress and to inform our teaching. Work samples are also a useful and easy to understand way to share information about a child's development and learning with the child's family. Ongoing child assessment is an important element of the House framework. By collecting information on an ongoing basis, we can get an answer to some important questions. How is the child doing? And do I need to make changes to help this child keep making good progress? The module on work samples is part of our series on different ways to collect information on children's learning. First of all, what is a work sample? It is an example of a child's work that illustrates effort, progress, and achievement over time. A work sample might be a child's drawing or painting, examples of writing, pages from the child's journal, photographs of a child's work, or audio or video recordings. There will be more about using video in another module. Early childhood teachers have long collected examples of children's work. There are a number of advantages to this method of ongoing child assessment. The sample or product is part of the child's play or learning activity. The sample is created naturally from the activity and thus provides authentic information. The use of work samples may be particularly appealing to parents. They'll understand it is their child's work. By collecting periodic samples of children's work, teachers and parents will be able to see changes in a child's performance over time. The work sample should be related to the child's individual learning objective or to the overall goals for all of the children. To ensure that the sample makes sense when you go back to review it, attach a note that has the child's name, the date, and a little description about how and why the sample was collected. Organizing all the work samples takes some thought. Some teachers use binders or boxes. Others use electronic portfolios. Regardless, the collection or portfolio needs to be organized and stored in a way that makes it easy to locate and review the child's work. Now let's listen to some teachers talk about how they use work samples in their classrooms.
So with this, I put it together. With this, it helped me where the development is. Yeah. So I collect cutting sample, I could collect drawing, I collect the language. When we do home visit or conference, I take this, I share with them. Say, this is what I observe and this is what I write down for their language, for their literacy, and for their math and their cognitive and social. And I read it to them because the child said in English or Vietnamese, I write it down. I told the parent this will go home with them at the end of the year, but they're welcome to look at it anytime.
So this is something that is really used to document. I use it when I look at their skills, when I document for assessment, but it's not just for assessment's sake. On this page, I'm looking at this child. Here's their name writing without a name card. Here, this child actually can sound out and spell the word cars. Some children, they may have used a picture of a word, and then there's some children where actually the teacher wrote for them. So it's really integrated to where their skill level is, but they're books that will be paired. This is a book we're just starting to make, so it will have the pictures in it too, so it's an example for them of what we learned or what we did.
In order to provide effective instruction, teachers need to observe, document, interpret, or make sense of the assessment information, and then use those understandings to plan or adjust instruction. Collecting samples of children's work is one way of documenting your observations about children's learning. Work samples can be a fun way to collect ongoing child assessment information. Include this method in your plans for documentation. Collect samples often enough to keep track of children's progress and to tell you if you need to make changes to your teaching to help children achieve their goals. Learn more in our module on collecting and using work samples. We also have tips for teachers and helpful resources for you to use. Thank you for listening.
Trying to make sure I keep track of my time with you guys too. Remember.
Can permanent product be also thought of as a peace offering? Kind of. By extension, extended extension.
I mean, I guess it can. Sure.
Building rapport. Peace
Yeah.
offering, why not?
Yeah.
Can I go grab some aspirin out of my car before we go to...
Don't.
What? No?
He said don't. Oops.
I don't know.
Uh-oh. What did I just do? Did I just close this?
Oh my god. I'm gonna get my drugs. Is that okay? Yes. I won't get lost and I won't go. Oh my god. Oh no. Oh my god. Gross, make a donut.
Sorry, I don't know what I hit. I don't know how I closed that, but I know what number we're on. We're almost done. It's just graphing. Okay. Okay. The reason for graphing data. It is so important to graph data. So, and I'm going to pick a good one that I know is being graphed every day. I'm going to move over here. See this. Okay. So I'm trying to think who's going to this. You? Zoom. I don't know why it's taking so long. So this is his program here.
I don't know. I forgot the name of the other RPT, but she showed me how to do it.
Graph it?
Yeah.
Cool. Probably Lexi. Yeah. So here's the data sheet. So she has her data sheet, the program, and then she takes the data plus or minus. I'm not worried about what type of prompt it is. Like that's what these little things are. If it's a physical prompt, until you guys are good at taking data, like masters, I'm not worried about that because none of them are on a fading procedure where we're getting rid of the level of prompt is not a concern of mine right now. I just want to know that if they can do it on their own or not. And then, so once you have the data, so here is attending and we're doing eye contact to his name. So then I'm going to go find that program and it's under the attending tab and our program is eye contact in response to name. This is the directions for it and then flip it and it's our graph. So luckily we have 2 graphs to save paper and we started on March 26th at 40%. We started going up and then it's just like we're still baselining. Like it's been a month and we're still like we're having a really hard time looking in response to his name. However, if we skip over to, I'm going to go down to do an imitation. So I'm going to go to the imitation tab.
The elephant.
It's so funny. Okay, so one of our imitations is a gross motor, and the goal right now is to raise arms. So he has to look, because he can't do it. We tell him, like, do this, raise your arms. He has to be looking and then do it. We started at 0. We weren't, because he wouldn't even look in our direction. Now, we are at 80% in less than a month. So then once he masters that, then we will draw our line, our condition line, and then that will be the signal of another target. So why do you think that this is important rather than just doing this?
Because of my handwriting.
Maybe. That could be part.
So you can visually see like the increase or decrease.
Right, because here we can look at it and go, oh, 80%, 100%, he knows it. But if we look the day before, if we didn't have this, he was at 60%. And 71, he's, up and down, up and down, up and down. So what we need is 80%, and it tells us what our mastery means. So our target criteria is 80% or above for 3 consecutive days across 2 people. So we need, she has all of her initials because that's all we have right now. But if I were to go in, oh, never mind, Brittany's in here. So we need, and then I would do it a couple times to make sure that he's actually doing it across separate people. And he does it when I'll go in there. I'll be like, do this. Oh! Because his other goal is oromotor imitation, which is really funny because he just goes, whether you ask him to do or not, if you just call his name and he just starts opening his mouth because that's what he thinks you want. But we're not. So there's 2 different goals. But the whole point of imitation is to get their attention. Because when we call his name, he's not looking. And we need him to look when we call his name because, God forbid, he runs out into a parking lot or out of his house or anything else and we call his name and he doesn't look, there's something wrong. Something's going to happen. He can get injured. He can get lost, whatever. So that's why imitation and eye contact is like number 1. It seems silly because you're like, who cares if he imitates? But it's all the imitation is to get their attention, maintaining the attention, and he can't learn to do other things if he's not looking at you in general. He can't learn to write appropriately. He can't learn to add. He can't learn to read if he's not focusing on the same area. Forgot to mention the different levels and stuff. So there's behavior trends, variability, mean, level, and overlap. So let me grab these again. Let me find a good one. This is a good one. This is visual tracking for him. So he has a goal of visual tracking, and I think we're doing right side. we're trying to put things on the right side. Left side, he'll look immediately, no matter how big it is. It can be small, it can be big. If it's on the left side, he'll look, no problem. If it's on the right side, he's not looking. So that tells us when we're instructing him, let's try and stay on his left side, because that's where he's going to be focusing the most. If you're on his right side, he might not even see you. So what we're going to do is we're going to really hone in on those visual tracking skills, and we might be staying on the left, but we're going to put something, he loves the color yellow. So we're going to put something yellow here. She's been working on it, and so if we talk about our trends, our trend is going up or down. So here, it looks like we're going up, and then our trend went down. And now we're going back up. So we're going back up because she's noticed, she said, he does really well if I use a bigger object. So we have ups. I told her stop using a bigger object. You got to do a smaller object, because if he's doing really well with big and really bad with the low, we need to really focus on those little ones so that we can get in there and get his attention. It's great to have him successful, but we need to work on the part that he's not. The variability. Look at, like, this is like your heart monitor. When you don't want that. We want it to be across the board stable. We don't want, and this variability is not good. We go, whoa, what's going on? Why is it all over the place? I mean, he gets 100% one day and then 10% a couple days later. Why? Well, we figured out why. Because she's using big objects and little objects. So we're going to keep it the same. We're going to try and keep it stable so that we can get a stable rate. And then your level. Okay. And I think this,
I'm sorry.
What?
Is that a physiological thing, like the peripheral vision?
It's definitely some peripheral, something is going on, and I'm hoping that OT can hone in on that more too, because there's visual therapy for a reason. The kids get visual therapy because of those not being able to see in your peripheral. Well, that's not safe.
No.
We need to make sure that he can see what's going on. So we got to really focus on this, because if there's something coming at his head or a tree, something, we don't want him to walk into it and poke his eye. We need him to be more aware of what's going on his right side, his body awareness.
Is everything on the right side? Is everything on the right side kind of...
He's good on his left side. He can see things on his left. Like if we put an object to his left side, he looks over. But we put it on the right side, he's not noticing it.
But is it everything the one on his left side, or whichever one? The right
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
He's so low toned overall. I'm not really sure.
Is this our little lion? Our elephant?
Rawr, 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 rawr. Lion says, rawr says, rawr.
He made the elephant sound the other day.
This is I think this is our last video, and I think we're done after this.
Hi, this is Carl Leopson at the University of Arizona, and this is a video that's part of a series on visual analysis and graphing of data in single subject research designs. And today we're going to take a look at creating a simple graph for an A-B design, and we'll be using traditional conventions of single subject research design graphing. I'm going to be doing the graph in Word or in Excel on the Mac 2011. It's really similar to Excel on the latest versions of Excel on a Windows machine. And I've also got this graphing checklist that I'm going to use that I hope will help you as you watch me create the graph, and if you want to set up this data yourself and graph along with me. You can see we have the data laid out in columns. There are lots of ways to create these graphs, lots of software you can use. I'm going to use Excel, and I'm using a simple layout for my data that has the data in straight columns. So I have a column that tells me which rows are part of the baseline or phase A and which rows are part of the intervention or phase B. Right. I have a session column. I have a column for the target behavior. I have a column for the replacement behavior. I have a column for treatment integrity data. I have a column for IOA, or Inter-Observer Agreement of Target Behavior, and Inter-Observer Agreement of Replacement Behavior. But today we are just going to be graphing target behavior, replacement behavior, and the treatment integrity data on our graph. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is select the data series that we are graphing and choose the chart type. So let's select the target behavior, replacement behavior, and treatment integrity data. Since these data are all in columns, each column will be seen by Excel as a data series. You'll see what that means in a moment. Now let's select the chart type, and we're going to make a line graph today, and that is we're going to make a marked graph, line graph. And let's bring it into a space where we can see it, make it a little larger. The next thing we're going to do is remove this line from around the graph, because eventually we're going to move it to some other area in some other format, and so we just want to get rid of that line. So a couple ways you can do this. I'm going to right click on the edge of the chart and say that I want to format the chart area. And we're going to go to line. We're going to say no line. So now you can see that has removed the line from around the chart. Next thing we're going to do is format the plot area. So there's a plot area inside of the chart area. And the chart area has the plot area has a couple of things we want it to take care of. One is we're going to get rid of the legend. Single subject graphs don't usually have this traditional format of legend. So we're going to select it and delete it, and it also gains us some space within our graph. Single subject research designs graphs also do not typically have these vertical axis grid lines, so we're going to click on one, and they should all become highlighted, and we can delete or backspace, and they're gone. The next thing we're going to do is format both axes, the x-axis and the y-axis. So let's start by, actually I'm going to work from the bottom up, to be honest with you. I'm going to set the axis line color to black for both of them. You can see it's kind of a light gray, and when you try to move that to another program, it's not going to show up very well. So I'm going to either double click it or right click it and select format axis. Want to format the line. We want the line to be black. You see how dark it is? And we're going to do the same thing here. No, I don't have the right thing. Let's get the format the axis. To format the line, we want a black line for the axis. Be much easier to see. So the next thing we're going to do, you know what these also have on? These also have, I think they have shadows turned on, but we're going to make sure they're turned off because it gets a little funky. All right. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to align the numbers with the tick marks. You can see that the numbers are between the tick marks, and the tick marks are not underneath the data points. So we're going to format the horizontal axis. We're going to click on ticks. We're going to get rid of the major tick marks, and you can see they disappeared. We're going to select outside minor tick marks, and you can see that now they're aligned with the number and with the data points. Okay, the last thing we're going to do on the axis for now is we're going to lower this horizontal axis, and we're going to change the scale on this vertical axis. It's because we have data on the 0 line, these 3 data points, as you can see, in baseline for the replacement behavior are 0, and then the data goes to 0 for the target behavior. And when we switch these over to a black line, the line's going to get lost in the horizontal axis. So we want to move that horizontal axis, and the way you do that is by adjusting the vertical axis. So let's click on the vertical axis, format axis. We want to change the scale. Oddly enough, we want to extend that vertical axis, so we're going to say we want the minimum to be minus 10. We're going to set our maximum at 100. We don't need anything larger than 100. We're working in percentages. We want to set the major unit at 10. We're going to set the minor unit at 10. And we want the horizontal axis to cross the vertical axis at just a little below that 0 line. So let's say minus 2. Do you see how it's moved down? And it's moved our data up above that 0 line, which is going to make it easier to see. When we get to our next step, which is going to be setting marker shapes and formatting these data series, I'm going to use open and closed circles as the marker shape, because I think it's easier to begin with open and closed markers instead of just closed markers. I think it's easier for readers to see. And for the treatment integrity, I'm going to probably stick with a triangle and an open triangle. But let's start with series 1, and we're going to right click and we're going to say we want to format that data series. First thing we're going to do is change the marker shape. We're going to make it a closed circle. So we want a circle, and we're going to make it a little smaller too. How about that? We are going to change the marker line. So this is the marker, the actual marker that is the circle around it. And we're going to change that to black, and we're going to change the fill, the center of it, to black. So now it's just a black circle. We also want to change the line that describes the line that describes the data, the trend line. And we're going to change that to black, and we want to change the weight to make it not quite so thick. Let's take it down to about 1.5 points. So we have set the marker shape, set the line fill, or set the marker line, set the marker fill, set the line color and weight, and we haven't set the breaks yet, but we'll do that in a moment. Let's take care of this other data series. We're going to do the same thing. We are going to set the line to black. We are going to change the weight of that line to 1.5. We are going to change the marker style to a circle, but since we want an open circle, the marker style, the marker line will be black, the marker fill will be white. And sometimes you want to go with no fill if there are going to be data markers crossing up with each other so you can see through. But you can see what that does is it creates for us an open circle. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take care of these data up here, and we don't want them connected. And we're going to keep the marker style. We are going to change the marker line to black. We're going to change the marker fill to no fill and say OK. And that shows our treatment integrity. Now the trend breaks. This is an A/B design, and there are 3 data points that describe the baseline for both the target and replacement behaviors. So we want to have a break here where we're going to end up putting our phase line. And so we want to click we need to click on this one point, the fourth point, and remove the line between the third and the fourth point. When you do that is you click on the fourth point. Once, you click on it one more time until it's highlighted alone, and then you right click it and say that you want to format that data point. Click on the line and say no line. See how it just goes away? These would be funky things we would do in terms of arranging the data so that it would do that naturally, but you can remove the line this way. So I click on the next line once, the data point. I click on that data point one more time till it is highlighted alone. I right click it. I say format the data point, and I say no line. The last thing we're going to do is add some chart titles. You could do this in another program. I think it's perfectly fine to do it here if you are just doing an A/B or some other graph that doesn't require some more complex chart titles. So we really don't need to resize this plot area right now. We might need to if we need more space for chart titles. We'll see in the long run. We'll add chart titles by clicking on charts, chart layout. We'll say that we want a chart title above the chart, and for now we'll just call this chart Amy's behavior. We also want a horizontal axis title, and we're going to say that these were sessions. We also want a vertical axis title that is rotated, and this is % of intervals observed. And now our graph is pretty much ready to move and finish in another program. I generally move my graphs to Word to finish them, and sometimes I can move them into Photoshop if it's something that I'm actually sending to a publisher. We'll do that in another video. Why don't you try copying this graph for now and walk through this process and see if you end up with the same thing that I did. It's Carly Opson, University of Arizona, and we'll have a couple more videos on visual analysis and graphing of data in single subject research designs.
Okay. Alright, here is the RBT task list. So this is what your test is on. I thought I gave these to you, but I don't know. I guess I did.
Thank you.
I might not have. So inside of the task list, it covers everything. The measurement, so like preparing for data collection, implementing the assessment, skill acquisition, behavior reduction, documentation, reporting, professional conduct. It's your ethics. Being appropriate at work. Where is my mouse? I see it on that screen and it's not. Okay. Are there any questions?
Too many.
No. Okay, good. So I will email everybody the zip again because it includes all of your individual, even numbered assignments that you have to do. Yes, it does take time. It's supposed to be 2 hours each, so it may take 2 hours. It may not take 2 hours, but it's supposed to take close to that. Then when you're done doing that, because you have to fill out, there's a answer sheet you have to fill out. When you're done with it, tell me and we can make a time to go over it together, whether it's on the computer or face-to-face, whatever, because our schedules are so crazy. Let me turn this off before I forget. Beep.